Hi there. I'm just taking you to the European Environment Agency, and they've got sector split over emissions of selected heavy metals from EEA member countries. So they were just looking at all the different countries and what heavy metals have been taken out. Well, this is the October 6, 2001 version. Is we've got a list of cadmium, mercury, and lead. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to I'll just show you that actually. So it's lead we're on, all right. And as I move across, you see the light green, which is energy industries, is 5.2%. We've got 0.3%, which is something called fugitive emission, come from industry energy in brackets. 17.5% come from industry processes. So I don't quite know what that is, but it may not be all nuclear. This one is other energy, so we don't know what that is. The purple is transport, the light green, 26.4% is transport, and then there's something called waste, which we don't quite fully understand, but there is probably a breakdown on these reports. But I was just going to take it here because at the end of the day, what we've got is 7.5%. We've got 39%, right? So that's about 56, and we've got 5.2%, and there's a possible 0.3 as well. But anyway, but 5.6. So we're sort of getting up to sort of nearly 60%. Oh, sorry. Yeah, being nearly 60%. When all's said and done. Lead comes from the energy sector, and I just wanted to bring you to that, and I'm going to put the link up so you can have a look at it and dig in there and find out what you want. Okay, there's two reports I'm going to leave links to as well. One is a DEFRA report, Department for Environmental, Food and Rural Affairs, and they're kind of covering the March 2006. It's an industry profile, industrial activities which have used materials containing radioactivity. So, and there's a link to it and what have you here. I'm not going to go on about this one too much because I want to come to a more modern, more updated one. And they're basically looking at the science behind the contamination of different types of lands, and this was in 2006, and they've put these details here, and I'm just going to let you have a look through them yourself, and I'm actually going to come to the later one, and because I think there's a little bit of some mad stuff going on, and basically what's happened here is that we've got them sort of changing, the orders to do with land contamination as well, and it is coming both in 2012, these two changes, and it makes developers makes it easier for developers to develop brown site land, which is industrial land and what have you. So what's happening now is that they're going for a bit of the government wants a building binge. So in order to do that, they need to cut down the contamination. Obviously we've looked at the one to do with the land, and now we're looking at one to do with the water. So they are connected. There's a more contaminated bleed off allowed as long as it doesn't cause problems, severe problems to human health. They're not actually talking too much about the environment. I saw it once mentioned, but when they're talking about it, it's severe damage to human health, and that is the criteria. It's not does it give you slight skin rash or other slight illness. So from their point of view, it has to severely make you ill. And then that is a contamination source that needs sorting out. And I'll put the link to any news so you can read for yourselves the bits that I've pulled out, and I'll leave the link there is on obviously with the PDF that it came from, and you can read it yourself and see if I've manipulated the data in any way. And evidence for yourself. You need to check these things out for yourself, not listen to me or anyone else. Definitely not anyone else. So anyway, this is the Water Act 2003. They're sort of upping the amount of contaminants, and they're saying very much similar. If it doesn't seriously affect human health, have a look at my video, which where King's College, the last one I did, the King's College London are bringing up the fact that contaminants are a bit more harmful to us than were previously. I think there's mention of the fact that what's happening basically is they're saying that the contaminants themselves have more of an effect, and what they've been ignoring are the smaller contaminants, the sort that come out of nuclear power stations, and they're realizing that actually because they're 0.25 micron or whatever or less, is that they actually enter the bloodstream much quicker. Right, and so what they're saying is, hey, we need to take stock of this, and just before, while they're discussing this land pollution and air pollution, I should say, the air pollution issues in London, of course, the water and the land issues have been changed by government and big business, and I didn't see a lot. I don't think King's College London were involved with it, because they wouldn't be doing a or if they were saying, hey, there may be a bigger problem with smaller dust particles. Yet we know the pollution is getting worse, and it's being covered up by Boris Johnson and his spraying machines, next to monitoring stations, to keep the dust down, so the PM10 count is low, and the PM10 is quite big. Still won't they won't see the PM 2.5s very often, because at the end of the day, that's kind of what we've got coming out of nuclear power plants, and it's not what they're measuring. Be nice if they did. Make an interesting map. Anyway, so big argument, and it just seems like this water and this land registry thing is being pushed through because there's been the issues about air is coming up, and this has been done around the back, and so nobody's sort of saying let's deal with all this in one hit. You have two different departments, one for radiology, one for radiological issues, and then one for everything else. And I'm bringing you here to show you that they're trying to up the amount that we can take. Now, I've yet to find where they've upped the amount of radiation, but they kind of upped it by not testing for it. They're not testing for it. They've stopped the testing that they were doing. So in my mind, they've, if I get a piece of lamb and it's got 2,000 becquerels, nobody's going to be the wiser. If it's 3,000 becquerels, if I eat something that eats lichen or anything like that, mushrooms, or go up to the hill, at the end of the day there is a problem, and we need people to be looking at this with a bit of common sense. And it would seem that the government is just set to make money, and it's all over these reports, by the way. It's all over the reports. We need to make money, the profit, the socio-economic, all these terms are sort of brought up, and there's no independent, as far as I can work out, there's no independent scientists coming forward saying, in fact, actually, they haven't even got King's College, as far as I'm aware, saying, hang on a minute, while you're letting all this land and water and this gets into the air and what have you, we've got issues around small particulates. The whole thing's disjointed. It's completely mad, and I'm just going to post this video up as a bit of a rant, a Sunday rant, and then just quickly to point out that we're getting rushes of up to half an hour of high peaks and madness, and then it sort of drops to 0.09 to 0.17. We're sort of 0.12, 13, maybe a bit lower sometimes on the average. Just a little update there, because I'm not going to keep posting up videos unless there's a good reason for it. Now I want to try and concentrate on some of this stuff that's going on around the back, which we don't get to see, these reports and arguments going on by various people, but I'm going to try and find more out about who who's involved in the land update. That might be interesting. But it's not easy to come by because they had private meetings. Anyway, take care, and I shall put all these links up, and I'll post a link to it so you can have a look at these. And this is referring to the latest report, the land report, which they want to push through, or have pushed through, sorry. And if you see there, it says on 149 of the report, halfway through I think it is, the current guidance covers for both non-radioactive and radioactive contamination, which stakeholders find confusing. Okay, so they're going to change it. But they're also saying that to date there have been no cases of radioactive contaminated land being dealt with under Part 2A regime in England and Wales. This is kind of true. There is a kind of one in Scotland, but technically that is true. But I've put lies under it, and the reason I've put lies under it is because of what we're not told. And I'm going to just scroll up here. You see I've made references to various things about how much money they're going to make, all this type of stuff. How did it start? 25 informal meetings, around 150 key players from across the sector. It's an article by The Guardian, and it says and it's 2nd of May, just recent. Radioactive waste may be blighting 1,000 UK sites. To this one, I'm going to scroll out a little bit and hopefully you'll be able to see it. But the second paragraph up there on top of the link, which is yellowed out, it says to try and avoid it becoming the first place in the UK to become legally designated as a radioactive contaminated land. They're basically using legal things. Anyway, so on this bit of land, there was it's a beach. There was more than 2,500 radioactive hotspots have been found there on the foreshore in 22 years. This is in Scotland. So 1/3 of them since last September, interestingly enough. And then the MOD are actually saying, well, you know, it wasn't us. This is from what they've said is that some of the contaminated sites may be from industrial rather than military activities, putting the blame firmly on the NPPs and the like. Waste reprocessing and what have you. So I will put this link down because it's really interesting, by The Guardian, discussing issues around the site. I read the whole Guardian article. It is actually worth a read. It does discuss the issues around cover-up. So these links I'm putting all there. So what we've got reports being done. They're not being joined up. So they're talking about some things and other people are talking about other things, and the whole thing isn't being put together. That's obvious, because there's certain issues that can't be put together because you have to mention the word nuclear, and that can't be so. Very surprising to see the Guardian article about the contamination. So, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, the MOD was saying, oh, there may be only 15 sites that are a bit contaminated, but there could be up to 1,000, and certainly hundreds of sites. But we don't know because nobody's been testing, kind of common thing, and maybe the testers that were testing the sheep up in the mountains who are now not working could maybe do some testing on military sites just to see how many of those are having problems, and to find out how much of the industrial contamination on top of the military contamination. You know, what's that all about? They have to do isotopic tests to find out where it all comes from. Very complicated and time consuming. And I have been going out doing some journeys, 0.09 to 0.17, and less spikes today. I did get a few, 0.23, 0.33, but not very many. And concerning the Geiger counter reading, what I'm going to do, I'm going to start doing some regular checks around London, to try and get a larger slice of London in a more formal sort of way, as best as I can. I'm only one man. Of course, behind it all is the dose levels. You know, that's kind of big. These dose levels that we're allowed, and that the UK university establishment want to let us have. You know, I don't want any of it personally, but they want to give us quite a lot of it. The way that it works, I think it's all pushed along by finance, by rules, by legal, shareholders, contracts, all these sort of things. These are the sort of things that make this all roll along. You know, our system is completely decrepit and knackered. Nobody wants to sort of tackle it, and you know,